Hello and welcome to this very special show. As we complete one full year of Modi government, it's time to take stock on whether enough progress has been done as promised, whether it has changed lives, business and created opportunities for the various sectors on ground level. In this very special show, we will get you views from the gems and jewellery sector, which has seen a lot of policy change in the past year, and also a special mention in the budget. Joining me on the show are Mohit Kamboj, who is President, India Bullion and Jewellery Association. Sanjeev Agarwal is member of FICCI's Gem and Jewellery Group. Joining us also is Somasundaram PR, who is MD World Gold Council. And Surendra Mehta is part of Gold Monetization Committee, Government of India. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for joining us. Mohit, let's start with you first. And there have been some positives that we have seen in last 365 days. To start with, we did see 80-20 being eased off. The imports have been made easier. And of course, apart from that, we've seen gold loans also see some positive stuff. Would you say these three are enough, or more has happened really during the Modi regime in last 1 year?
A very good evening to everyone. I would just like to congratulate the Modi government for being positive towards gems and jewelry industry. From last couple of years, we have seen that government was not favor of gems and jewelry industry. The policies, the 19th circular came into a single year in 2013 to 14 regarding put restriction on gems and jewelry industry from RBI. But when NDA government came into power, they abolished 2080 policy of import of gold. They started gold loan again. They instructed banks also to help the customers regarding restructure of accounts and different policies which were not in favor of the jewelers in India. I think government is working towards the industry. They are reviving the industry, and time to come, the industry will be revived and people will see the good days ahead.
So Mohit, what are you ranking the Modi government as? Are you giving them 8 out of 10 for the gems and jewelry sector?
I would not give 8 out of 10, but I will give them 9 because they are working towards the industry, and the implementation will be done in the time to come. And I think that it is going to be in another 6 months. People can see the work, what they are doing.
So we are talking about 1 year of Modi government. And what's your sense then on what has been done for the gems and jewelry sector? How would you rate it?
I think a lot, I would say. Given various priorities, I don't think the industry could have asked for anything better. There is always a lot of things to be done, but as I see it, in the short time, quite a lot has been done, and the intent is very clear to make gems and jewelry actually part of the Make in India campaign, and make sure that the large workforce continues to contribute. So I see it very positively. And this is dependent on all that we have seen, the notifications we have been reading in the recent times. So it's good for the industry, but there's a lot more to be done, certainly, as always in anything about India.
Sanjeev, this one is to you. How would you rate what the last year has brought in for the gems and jewelry sector? Has the government given you all that they promised?
There's been a marked and a very stark change in the attitude of the government towards the industrial sector as a whole and the gems and jewelry sector in particular. And what's the marked change is, one, the previous government thought that they could reduce all their ills of bad economic management by putting curb on gold imports. But it has backfired, because whatever was curbed came through smuggling, which became substantial amount of inflows, and more importantly, jewelry and gems, which exports significant amount, about 14% of our export is gems and jewelry sector contribution. That actually came down. In spite of the 80-20 scheme, whereby they promised a 20% supply to the export sector. At the end of the day, you have to remove shackles for different industry and sector and act as enablers to growth, not destructors to growth. And I think that's what the new government has done. It has moved towards being an enabler, listening to the people in the industry, various industries, including our industry. I mean, for the first time, if you wanted meetings with the finance ministry officials, the commerce ministry officials at the center, they were willing and open to have a discussion, dialogue, and understand, appreciate. And even at the commerce minister level, Mr. Sitaraman sat for a significant amount of time with the industry bodies to as part of the Make in India initiative, understand what are the drawbacks and how we can increase exports, increase domestic production rather than putting a curb. So that's very positive.
So those are positives that Mohit and Sanjeev of course talked about, but Surendra, I want to talk about the import duty, because that is one area that the markets were expecting that we might see some cut coming in for that one. That really hasn't been catered to.
Yeah, that's true. The whole industry has been lobbying hard to cut this import duty in the country. But the government has very limited options. You know, the 10% duty cut will compensate the gold monetization and gold bond scheme which the government is launching. I don't think industry is upset with that, because if you really export the goods, then there is no duty element involved. But for the domestic consumption, one should be prepared to pay the price for that.
So what's your sense on the import duty then? In India, do you think that's another reform that government could look into as the unofficial gold continues to enter India?
Yes, although with the removal of the other restrictions like 80-20, we sense that the demand for the unofficial side is lower. It is also reflected in the kind of premiums that we see in the market. It's almost become negligible. But still 10% is a huge arbitrage for the smuggling network to operate. And it will always remain alive as long as 10% remains, and this is known. So our expectation is that as things improve on the deficit front, and as oil prices, whichever way, I mean, it comes down to what the government wants, I think we will see this coming down to very reasonable levels. We had seen 2%, so for the trade to be convinced about anything higher than that as normal is going to be very difficult.
How much of a finer details have come out of that? I mean, of course, we've heard a lot about on what needs to be done, but has the work really started on the ground level for the same?
The work is in the process. It is getting started. But what I would like to share with you is that we are being regularly called for the implementation mechanism of gold monetization scheme. See, we need to understand that in India there is a passion for gold. It has always been called Sone ki Chidiya. Now this Sone ki Chidiya can only be brought back in the India by virtue of gold monetization scheme. The finance minister Arun Jaitley ji himself has said there is about 20,000 ton of gold in the country, which is being locked in the household. Now this gold needs to be brought to the system. Of course, we all understand that it's difficult for 20,000 tons of gold to be brought back, but even if 5,000 ton is brought into the system, it will be a huge benefit to the government. We import roughly about, say, 1,000 ton of gold every year. Since last 3 years, this has been the trend, 900 to 1,000 tons. Now imagine the situation where 5,000 tons of gold by virtue of gold monetization is coming in the system. This would save about 12,50,000 crore rupees of government, and there would not be any import required for the next 5 years. What can be better than this?
But all of that is still on paper, Surendra. We haven't seen much of that happen as yet.
It will happen soon. It will happen soon. Definitely it is.
We keep our fingers crossed for that one. Mohit, this one is to you. While we have talked about monetization, and there is this talk about Make in India, about a gold coin here, we've also talked about the bonds. The paper gold seems to be making a comeback as well. But then again, do you see the Indian population or as an investor ready for it?
For the gold bonds?
Yes, paper gold.
Paper gold, I think it will promote in India. The last government was also trying to promote ETF gold also, but ETF was not very much famous in the public, because in India the basic problem is what? People want physical gold to see yellow gold in their hands. They don't believe in ETF gold or bond gold. But in time to come, it is successful in metropolitan cities, and we have to go, like the accounts have been 14 crore accounts government has opened across India in last 12 months. People are getting educated regarding banking. So it will take some couple of years. They will get educated about ETF gold also, gold bonds also. It will be success also.
Sanjeev, this one is to you. I mean, of course, lots is being done, as we just discussed on the panel as well. But on the ground, have you seen the situation really change?
Well, that's exactly the problem. While at the central command level, at the central ministry, at the level of the state ministry, there has been a significant improvement in attitude and process and behavior. However, at the operating level, there still is a gap. For example, on the banking sector, as part of the whole process of liberalization, the government and the finance ministry along with the RBI has agreed that a gold metal loan is a very relevant product for the Indian manufacturing sector and it should be allowed. But the banks are taking their own sweet time to convert the cash credit lines that they had converted to in 2013 back into gold metal loan, which means that the manufacturers are paying that much higher interest cost, which is about 3 times more than the gold metal loan interest cost, which is impacting their profitability, impacting their competitiveness and hence exports. Unlike many other sectors, jewelry manufacturing and especially gold jewelry manufacturing is scattered all over the country.
Correct.
So it's not in SEZs. So even if you get a refund or any tax rebate at a later date, the entire manufacturing process is from all the small karigars all over the country. And if they don't get the necessary interest related cost efficient gold supplies, they will not be efficient. I have a few other points to make on the customs duty issue.
Sure.
The question is not the jewelry sector wants a reduction in the customs duty issue. Because even at a 10% duty, the demand in the country for gold jewelry and gold as an investment has not changed. Has not changed because it's almost the same over the last 3 years. So where is the problem? The problem is that on one hand the government is talking about pushing out the cash money and cash transaction from the economy, but because of the 10% duty it is creating a parallel economy and fueling the parallel economy, because almost about 150 to 200 tons as per GFMS is being smuggled into the country.
And does that bring us onto the PAN card bill? Because that is something that most of the jewelers and the bullion people were actually against on. Mohit, what's your stand on that?
Okay, as a citizen of India, as a taxpayer and an association president, when we see India getting into organized sector and when we want all the industry to grow and people to be educated, it was must that 1 lakh, the figure, we cannot define the figure, but it was must that all the Indians should have their PAN card. They should be taxpayer towards as a citizen of India. Government has taken an initiative. We are support to government that yeah, it's a good initiative, but how to make it successful, that is the most important. We have to educate the people. We have to go to the people that yeah, this is compulsory. Some of the people are trying to spoil the image of government. Yeah, how can you blame 1 lakh rupees? You can't promote cash transactions in India anymore. You go to US, you go to UK, there are some limitations out there. So limitations should be in India, and I think we are support to government regarding the PAN card issue. We will try to go to people to educate the retailers also. You tell the customers to get the PAN card, pay your taxes on time and be a nice citizen of India.
Surendra, since you are a CA as well, would you say that we are looking at more paperwork here? Yes, more limitations, more discipline, restrictions. Do you see all of that coming back into the markets for us?
No.
Are we being told on how to deal with it?
No. In reality, if you see in the other parts of the country, these restrictions are about $10,000. So in India, about 1 lakh rupees restriction is a good enough restriction.
Okay.
Now, let's take an example of a situation where, you know, a person says, that I don't have bank account. For that, the Prime Minister has already announced the Jan Dhan Yojana. They are announcing the system wherein a PAN card will be issued in 48 hours. So I don't think this would be an initial implementation problem, but see in around 3-4 months time, there would not be any problem in respect of all this.
Mohit, let's talk about the Make in India thing, because that is something that has been really hyped about. That is what Modi seems to be selling to the foreign institutions as well, and of course for the overall growth in the industry. When we talk about the skilled labor here, when we talk about the exports, when we talk about value addition, how far has the jewelry industry come in for that?
What we can do in Make in India, we can stop import of jewelry. We can manufacture jewelry in India. Now, if you comparison Hong Kong, China, Dubai, Italy, all are manufacturing jewelry and exporting to India and other part of the country, world. We can get a big jewelry park here where we can manufacture jewelry.
IBJA already has worked on it.
We are working on that.
Yeah.
Where we will get all the foreign companies with good technology machine to bring down to India, get it established in India with a JV with Indian companies. We will manufacture jewelry in India and we will supply to all over the world. So export will promote, CAD issues will be solved, and we can make the figures come down to 2 lakh crore rupees of export per year.
Mohit, how far are we from that reality? Because this is still on paper.
What we are doing as an association, we are with the government, we are negotiating to get a good infrastructure to the people. Once we get a good infrastructure, there are people to work, there are people to invest, there are people to help the government. So we are working on getting the good infrastructure to our associates, to our association people, so that a good atmosphere can be built around across the India, which will support Make in India.
Fair point. Taking from where Mohit left, Sanjeev, when it comes to manufacturing and value addition, is something that India really needs to look at, because that is what will put us on the global map. How far are we from that, and what is the number crunching that you've done on this?
The manufacturing process of jewelry has two advantages as far as India is concerned, or actually three advantages. India's heritage across generations has been jewelry manufacturing. So you're promoting the Indian heritage. Second is the fact that Indian jewelry is acceptable globally as a center of excellence for jewelry. So that's a plus point if you're marketing Indian jewelry, manufactured Indian jewelry abroad. And the third important thing is that over 85% of the people working in this manufacturing process in India are either a MSME sector or the karigars working in a small cottage industry setup or a one-room accommodation and things of that sort. So you're promoting one of the major objectives of the country in terms of employment generation if you push this. And what is the possibility of pushing, getting employment generation as far as this is concerned? Today, as per the National Skills Development Board, the employment in the gems and jewelry sector across the entire value chain is about 46 lakh people.
Seems like a huge number, yes. But you mentioned a point about how India seems to be or needs to be learning from other countries like China and Turkey on how they have made use of their inside gold. Surendra, you know, there's lots that we need to learn from the models that already have been established outside and how it can help an economy. We have talked about the current account deficit, and most of the curbs really came in because of that. When you have these meetings with the government, what is the sense on how much would they want to further ease into the sector?
Both can hedge against each other if they are implemented properly. So government is flushed with the gold, the government is flushed with the money also. What government can do with this money is they can lend this money against the people, to the people who have given gold under the gold monetization scheme. We have already suggested this. They can lend it at, say, PL through the bank at PLR plus 3% or 4% interest. That is as far as the money which is collected in gold bond scheme. And as far as
there also was a debate that perhaps the return that the government is talking about is really not attractive for people to get into this scheme.
See, I tell you, it is not the return which is important, but it is the money which a person gets back. That is very important. Okay. I don't think the return is important, because the return will not exceed 2% or 2.5% at all. Under the gold monetization scheme, the same gold can be given by virtue of metal gold loan scheme. So both can be thrown open in the market. The gold can be thrown open in the market through the gold metal loan scheme, and the money can be given in the market to the people who have deposited their gold under the gold monetization scheme. So it will hedge against each other.
What extra or what more would this sector now want from the PM in the coming next 1 year, let's say?
When we are talking Make in India, then we need the support of finance institutions also. Without the help of finance institution, this cannot be made successful, because you need a working capital loan.
Sure.
And now working capital loan has been stopped totally towards gems and jewelry industry from last 1 year. So I think we will get it positive, and the time to come, all the expectations of the people with gems and jewelry industry will be fulfilled.
So what would you want the government to move on in the next year now? What would you actually see taking form from all that the government has been talking about?
Well, as we have given out the policy, suggested policy document for India, we have even issued a vision statement. What we would like is India, the jewelry industry, having done such good work, I think they should raise their ambitions, and everything should be to promote this industry as the jeweler to the world. And we still believe the handcrafted jewelry of India is marketed has been marketed in a particular manner, but it has huge potential globally. So I think that is one thing we would like to see. And domestically, we would like the consumer to get a little more transparency on the price and the channels. So banking should enter gold back again. through the monetization scheme, through sale of coins, through buyback of coins. So probably these are the two things I would say, raise the level of the jewelry industry to that of the Swiss watches, and bring banking and gold together.
All right. Sanjeev, what is your sense? What was announced in budget was enough? Are you looking at something apart from that? And what more would you want in the next year to come?
With the gold monetizing scheme, the government is saying, I will get the gold lying, and part of that will come back into the system in a formal process and be used more effectively. How will it be used more effectively? Supposing about 100 tons of gold out of the estimate 20,000 ton comes into the system, which is a very reasonable number. That 100 tons of gold can be used for jewelry manufacturing, and hence over 200 tons of gold imports in the form of jewelry manufacturing will come down.
Correct.
So that's a smart move. Then the gold bonds. There are a number of investors, and over the last, again, 6-7 years, because of the gold bull run and inputs from my previous employer, World Gold Council, etc., where we used to say, invest in gold, it should be part of your portfolio. Asset allocation, 5 to 10% of your portfolio should be in gold, and rightly so. Having done that, there are a lot of investors going forward and in the past who would want to put into a gold certificate with a gold type return available to him over a 5 to 10 years period. There are also people, the salaried class and other investor class, who would buy gold for their future use for weddings of the children at a later date. They're forced to buy a coin from whichever source, a bank or a jeweler. They're forced to pay cash up front and keep it in the locker. If that same is available in a form of certificate with a promise to give him that 10 grams 5 years later, that's a bonanza, both for the government, for the jewelers who can utilize that money, and even for the individual that he does not incur the cost of storage, etc., etc. So yes, jewelry, you need to own it, but coins and bars can still be put in a more productive use.
Absolutely. Surendra, this question is to you. You know, in the month of May, this month itself is when we are expecting some more fine prints to come in on the reform. And the other one which has been touched and then stepped back has been the gold coming out of the temples. Do you think the PM's strong connect with the consumer or perhaps with the population can actually enable that to happen?
As far as temple is concerned, I have my own doubts, because that's a very sentimental matter as far as India is concerned. We are very religious people. The gold may not come out of the temple, but yes, from the household it will definitely come out. That is my my perception. And let me tell you one more thing very clearly, that India is a country where gold and money, if both are hedged against each other. See, this is the first time the government is launching a scheme where, you know, the actual gold and actual money will be in the accounts of the government. Earlier, all disclosure scheme which are being announced, the money, only the tax money has come to the government. This is the first time the entire money will come to the government.
Doesn't seem like a very strong possibility right now. Mohit, you want to add to that?
Make it possible, I think what government should come with a disclosure scheme also. You just appeal to people that you, in the gold monetization scheme, you come and deposit the gold in the banks or to the government. People have to show their way of from where that has come to them. Not so much on currency, but I'm sure gold and property are a couple of subjects, Sanjeev, that government really is trying to track down on.
No, definitely. Track down on is absolutely correct in terms of the intent and the direction. But the question is, one, when you're talking about the gold monetizing scheme, it's not a question of just funds which are unaccounted for, but to really make it effective, it needs some sort of a amount which can be put into this gold monetization bank account without questions asked, and the reason is very simple.
All right, so that is the kind of support, or rather views, is what we have coming in from our panel. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us with the debate today.